Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, in our ongoing study in the book of Revelation. We're looking at introduction material. We're going to look at G.K. Beale again. We're going to take a look at pages 28 to 50 in his commentary. And it'll give us a look at theme, authorship, and interpretive approaches. Let's begin with block 1. Let's take a look at the purpose and the theme. John's motive for writing is that the kingdom has been inaugurated. It's that God is sovereign over all of history and that Christ will soon return. And in 2:13, Antipas is mentioned as a Christian believer who has been martyred for his faith. There was selective persecution during Domitian's reign. In 6:9 through 11, we have the vision of the martyred saints. So it does reference past persecutions by Rome. So John is addressing persecution under Domitian. So note 2, John saw that persecution would slowly intensify. This was a crisis that many believers did not perceive. Many did not perceive that it would be intensified to the level that John saw. The Revelation sets forth definitions of true reality. The church is to preserve these counter definitions that oppose Roman culture and Roman oppression. And so if we look at these definitions of the real in note 3, John says there is a true cosmic order undergirding all of society. Citizens were expected to pay their dues to trade guilds and to honor the patron deities, including homage to the emperor, Domitian, and must meet the demands of emperor worship. All of this was increasing. The imperial cult was increasing. So if you take a look at note 4, provincial officials enforced the cult to gain economic favor from Rome. John wrote to exhort believers not to compromise their faith. And he singled out the Nicolaitans. The Nicolaitans redefined the apostolic tradition in order to exist more peaceably with the imperial cult and to avoid persecution. So John even singled out the Nicolaitans as those who have compromised the faith and lost their Christian identity. So he's addressing compromise in note 5. John called those who compromised the faith cowards and faithless ones. Pressure included the trade guilds, the imperial cult, and even the Jewish community. The practice of Judaism was allowed in the Roman Empire. Following 70 AD, Christians were considered an illegitimate sect of Judaism. Therefore, they didn't have the privilege that the synagogues enjoyed. Christians did not enjoy that privilege. So if you take a look at note 6, Christians as illegitimate sect, Christians claimed that the destruction of the temple was God's judgment for crucifying Jesus, and Christians were winning over Gentile God-fearers that were going to the synagogue. Now they were being converted to Christianity. They were being drawn out of the synagogue. And Christians were not under the obligations of Judaism. And so we've got Jewish oppression and Roman oppression. So you look at note 7, Jewish oppression and the loss of Gentile God-fearers. Jews petitioned local officials stating that Christians were not a legitimate part of Judaism. Christians could be brought before Roman officials and asked to show their loyalty to the Emperor Domitian. They had to offer a sacrifice before the image of Domitian, and they had to curse Christ. So Revelation is a prophecy against the Roman Empire in note 8. Because of the corrupt system of Roman power, some churches were on the verge of losing their Christian identity The problem was the challenge of witnessing in the midst of temptation to compromise. Smyrna and Philadelphia remained faithful according to John. But there is this threat of compromise because Christians were receiving Roman persecution and Jewish persecution. And the Nicolaitans had already compromised the faith. Now let's move on and take a look at Block 2 and take a look at authorship and genre. And Beale tells us that the author is John the Apostle as author. The author identifies himself as servant and as one who is suffering exile. And Beale tells us that the apocalyptic theology in Revelation is not irreconcilable with the Gospel of John's theology. The Exodus motif is present in both the Gospel of John and the book of Revelation. And John also identifies himself as a prophet. So under genre, the book of Revelation combines three genres. It is apocalyptic literature, it is prophetic literature, and it is the apostolic epistle. It's apostolic, it is prophecy, it is an epistle. As apocalyptic, it is intensified prophecy. The word apocalypse is a direct allusion to Daniel 2. It is a prophetic revelation communicated from God, and this fits Old Testament prophetic apocalyptic. So it falls under that genre. The book of Revelation is apocalyptic literature. So let's take a look at Block 2, Note 3. The Revelation reflects an already and a not yet approach to end times. It focuses on the source of revelation as God's throne room. Real spiritual struggle is going on behind the scenes of Asia Minor society. So we're looking at spiritual struggle according to John. In Note 4, the real is the inaugurated new heaven and earth. And in 3:14, victory comes from the heavenly sphere. And then the lamps of spirit give power to the church lampstands. The Revelation reveals God's redemptive eschatological history that has already been inaugurated since the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ. Revelation reflects God's redemptive eschatological history, his plan of salvation. So we look under Note 5, redemptive eschatological history. It erupts from the hidden heavenly dimension. The churches are exhorted to submit to the demands of this book, because there is the danger of compromise. The book begins and ends in an epistle-like matter. So it's Revelation as apostolic epistle. In Note 6, to address problems that have arisen in the church, the letter also focuses on the past and the present, not just the future. The major topic is the implications of Christ's death and Christ's resurrection. Believers are to change their behavior in light of the transcendent real. In light of the transcendent real eschatological movement of God's kingdom. So it's all about the transcendent real in Note 7. It's a transcendence that is eschatologically temporal and supernaturally spatial. John seeks to exhort an endurance of faith from believers because the end time events have already been inaugurated according to John. Therefore, that should influence human behavior by means of divine authority. So it is a redemptive eschatological history written as apocalyptic. It is redemptive eschatological history written as apocalyptic literature. We are now ready to take a look at the interpretive approaches to interpreting this book of Revelation in Block 3. And Beale begins with the preterist view, and that simply means that the book of Revelation concerns past fulfillments, past events. The preterist view means prior in Latin, so it's past events. It takes Revelation as a prophecy of the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, and therefore it posits a date prior to 70 AD. Babylon is equated with the apostate Israel, and persecution is Jewish persecution of Christians. And it follows the beast of Daniel 7 and identifies the beast as the nation of Rome. Final judgment is seen as figuratively fulfilled in 70 AD in the destruction of the temple. So the preterist view posits early date prior to AD 70. Now for a second view, we have we'll look at the critique first of preterist view. And Beale says that Daniel 2 and 7 anticipate universal judgment. Daniel 7:14 refers to all peoples throughout the world as subject to the Son of Man. And Revelation 13:7 and 8 has a universal reference. It is not specific to the destruction of the temple. Therefore, the preterist view should not be taken up, according to Beale. Now, 3.3, there is the idealist view. In 3.3, we got the idealist view that Revelation is a symbolic portrayal of the conflict between good and evil. As a timeless depiction of the struggle, it does not depict any final consummation to history. It does not identify any of the book's symbols to any historic events. And that view, Beale says, should also not be taken up. We should not take up the preterist. We should not take up the idealist. We should take up Block 3, Note 4, the redemptive historical view. It does posit a final consummation of salvation and judgment. There is a final coming of Christ to establish the final form of kingdom. The symbolic events of the Revelation portray events throughout history, all under the sovereignty of the Lamb. It does refer to historical events. It refers to historical emperors, and it is redemptive history. So Beale posits the redemptive historical view as his position, and that's the position that we will follow in our study of the book of Revelation. When we look at the purpose, we've got a chance to look at the purpose and really understand it as a prophecy against the Roman Empire. And it did include persecution from the Jews because Gentile God-fearers were converting to Christianity. And the church did not enjoy the freedom that the synagogues enjoyed. Authorship is John the Apostle, the exiled apostle who is exiled to the Isle of Patmos. And it is a letter that emphasizes the transcendent real reality that lies behind Asia Minor society. There's a divine authority and a divine eschatological history that is a redemptive history. And then for our approach, it will be the redemptive historical view. We do not support the preterist view. It's not early date, it is AD 95, not pre-AD 70. That's going to wrap up our introductory comments from Beale, pages 28 to 50.